Welcome back, everybody. This is Take His Whistle. My name is Parker. That is Josh. And I know, it's been a while since we have last chit-chatted, but we are back, and Take His Whistle kind of got a revamp. I don't know. We'll see it here in a second.
Oh, come on! Somebody take his whistle!
What's going on, everybody? This is Parker with Take His Whistle. Across the screen from me is Josh.
How's
Josh,
it
how are
going,
you today?
everyone? I'm doing great, Parker. It's always nice to be back here on the pod, and it feels great to be back.
And yeah, we have taken quite a break. It felt like we were posting podcasts, but then would take 2 weeks off, post one, take another 2 weeks off, post one, and we could never really get on a specific schedule. And then life happened, as you can probably tell. Josh, probably you can see that he moved into a new place, got himself his nice little hangout spot there. Me, I started a new job, had to get all that under the way. So it just got really crazy. Got really just
And on top of that, Parker, there's no sports to talk about, so
that is another thing.
we haven't had
Unless
anything.
you are a baseball guy, there is just nothing. It's just been off season, a whole lot as far as obviously football, which is the main kind of just talking point of today's video. But then basketball, it's just recruiting. That's all it is. So it's been kind of dead right now, and so I guess it's for the best. We kind of took off the football and basketball off season, but nonetheless, Take His Whistle is back, and we are returning just 2 weeks away from the start of the college football season, which is just an extremely exciting time. Josh, today we are talking Louisville and Kentucky. You're a Louisville fan. I'm a Kentucky
Yes,
fan.
sir.
Surprises to no one. Let's hop right into Louisville, and they're coming off a 10-3 season, correct?
10-2 technically, if you count the bowl game and the conference championship game. 10-4.
So 10-4 overall record. First year of Jeff Brom has brought back just the buzz of not just Louisville football, but just their season last year brought back just the spark of Louisville athletics, right? Because there was a time where their football program and their basketball program were struggling, heavily struggling. Now Brom comes in, revamps his whole place, kicks everyone out that was on the roster pretty much, brings in his own guys, and now it's year 2 of the Brom project. I guess the right revival for football. I know that's a basketball thing, but for football. Josh, you are a absolute lover of Louisville football. What are you most excited for going into this season? Is there a specific group that you're maybe worried about? Or just give me a rundown of the entire roster for what we're going to see this year for Louisville.
Okay, so first things first, we returned 2 of the best defenders in the ACC, arguably the country. We returned the best defensive edge in the ACC. No questions asked. Ashton Gelati, number 9, big man on the edge. Just a big get to get back. He could have gone pro easily last year. He was runner up in ACC Defensive Player of the Year last year. A lot of people thought he should have won it. He had a phenomenal season last year. 12 sacks, Parker. That's just off the top of my head. I don't know the other tackle for losses or the total tackles, but 12 sacks alone is impressive.
Right.
And then you have Quincy Riley, who had 3 interceptions last year and many more pass breakups, and is one of the best cornerbacks, or DBs, I guess is the easier way to say it, in the country. And I know that's kind of a Louisville thing to say, but I think a lot of people, if you ask them, Quincy Riley would be in that list. He's up there. So first things first, you get those 2 back. Both of them could have gone pro last year. They didn't. They chose to come back for their senior years. We're very excited for them. First things first, though, riding off that train of Quincy Riley, we're going to stick with the DB room. We bring in, I think it's, I don't have the transfer list pulled up, and that's actually on me, so let me pull up while I talk about it. But the transfers we brought in, first off, I think we had seventh best transfer class according to 247. And the talent we bring in the DB room, I'm getting there. It's been a while, everyone. I'm sorry. I apologize.
Taking the cobwebs off here.
Yeah, shaking the cobwebs off here. Let's see here. All right. So Corey Thornton, transfer from UCF, is looking like he will be the other starter on the other side of Quincy, and he was one of the top graded corners in as far as PFF goes, which people have their different ways if they look at PFF and they actually think it means something or whether they don't. Everyone has their own opinion, but one of the highest graded corners last year in the nation, Corey Thornton, UCF, now at Louisville. And then we bring in Tavion Nicholson from Illinois, who looks to be probably the slot corner. He stands at 5'11", 180. And he was also very exceptional last year at Illinois, but I know he's dealt with some injury problems at Illinois on and off. So he comes in there. But nonetheless looks to bring in some skill from as you know, a very experienced conference in the Big Ten, Parker.
Yep, right. And
then to go off of that, we're going to fall back to the safety room. Originally, we brought in 2 safeties from Tennessee. One of them we're not going to talk about today because he did some things that weren't great and he got kicked off the team. Some people, some Kentucky fans, are going to say that it's because of our checks bounced. Sure, whatever. That's not the true story. But the man we got personally is the better one in my opinion, Tamarion McDonald. 6'2", 208. I don't know if he's put on weight or if he's dropped in weight, but that's a big boy at safety. And he comes from the SEC experience. He comes from just the experience in general as being a starter for Tennessee, which is a defense that's always been and as you know, they're your most hated team, Parker. They've always kind of had a steady defense regardless of, they've never been too bad. They've never been too great either, but they've always, had that steady, resilient defense. So he's coming from that, bringing that experience over to the ACC, and he looks to be a very good addition to the safety room, where we have one of the most anticipated returns that I think any Louisville fan has had in a while, and that is the return of MJ Griffin. Sat out all of last year after tearing his ACL, and I believe it was fall training camp. He tore his ACL right before the season. I mean literally right before the season. I think he honestly might have tore it like around this time period last year, like a couple weeks out from the start of the season. Damn. He tore his ACL, was out for all of 2023, and he was looking to have a boost in production as far as as safety goes. The year before that, he had his breakout season in 2022, and then 2023 he was looking like, all the hype that Ashton Gelati and Quincy Riley have this year, MJ Griffin had last year.
Right.
So
right. I remember you talking about him preseason last year.
So MJ Griffin returns, and again, just Louisville fans are ecstatic to see him return because he's a hard hitter, he's a great leader, and he's just a great guy to have in that back in that backfield for the defense. And he's a very good safety blanket. Like, he was always very reliable at being that last layer of defense for us. He was always there to make the tackle, make the play. Wherever he needed to be, he was there. And that's why I think a lot of us are excited. But moving to the other side of the ball for now, I'm kind of scrambling here. I apologize, but I'm just trying to get through some stuff before we get into some more depth questions. We brought in, let's see here. I don't have the numbers as far as offensive transfers, but we brought in a lot. The most notable ones, obviously, you have the quarterback in Tyler Shuck, who is coming in from Texas Tech. He has spent, I believe, 2 years at Texas Tech, and I believe he spent 2 years at Oregon.
But
as
this is his 7th year of eligibility, though.
yeah, but this is so. Oh, okay, yeah. So actually, he spent. It might have been. It might have been 3-3 at each
I believe that's what it
college.
is. I believe
Yeah,
that's what it
I
is.
believe he spent 3 at Oregon, 3 at Texas Tech, and for anybody that knows college football, you probably know about his injury history. He has not played more than, I believe, 6 games in a single season, regardless of the season. He's been in college for 6 years, and he hasn't played more than 6 games. But every time he has been the starter of a game, he has won. I believe he's maybe lost 1 game as a starter. And I don't even know if he played that entire game.
Mm-hmm.
So every game that he has started and played through completely, I'm going to say it again. Every game that he has started and played through completely, he has won. So the talent is there, the potential is there, but the healthiness is not there. And I think Louisville fans are excited about his potential and what he can bring to the team that we didn't have last year. I think Jack Plummer left a lot to be desired last year.
Mm-hmm.
He missed a lot of throws that should have been made. He made some decisions that should not have been decided. And in some important game situations. I could point to that Kentucky game, Parker. The game was in our hands, and obviously there was that kick return touchdown, which hurt us a lot. But we had chance.
After that, Plummer fumbled.
Yeah,
right?
we yes, yeah, he fumbled, and we had even after that fumble, we had chances to win the game, and it just was not capitalized. And Jack Plummer had very, very tunneled vision for Jamari Thrash. Now, granted, that's not a bad wide receiver whatsoever to tunnel vision at all if you're a quarterback. But however, when he's
tunnel vision in the first place,
but you don't want to tunnel vision in general as a quarterback. You want to have all your options available. And in Jack Plummer's defense, our receiving room last year had some trouble getting separation, and Jamari Thrash tended to be the only one who could get separation. So I can see why he tunnel visioned so hard on him, but at the end of the day, that's just not something that you can do. But moving on from Shuck, well, actually, before we leave Shuck, if he stays healthy, I believe that he can be a very good quarterback. I believe he's an upgrade at the position from Jack Plummer. But if he gets hurt, then I'm not sure what's going to happen, what we'll do. I believe as of right now, if Tyler Shuck gets hurt, then the plans are to hand the reins to redshirt freshman Pierce Clarkson, which I know excites the fan base a lot to hear that name.
You think Louisville goes with, if in case, like in the worst case scenario that Shuck does get hurt, do you think they go with the Pierce Clarkson or the Brady Allen?
So as far as I know, Brady Allen is 4th on the depth chart behind Tyler Shuck, who's the starter, Pierce Clarkson, who's QB2 as of right now, and then Harrison Bailey, who is QB3 as of right now.
Okay.
And then I believe it's Brady Allen at 4.
Wow,
From what I've heard, there's just some things that Brady Allen has been told to figure out and learn, and he just hasn't developed in the way that they've wanted him to. So he's currently sitting at QB4. But past Tyler Shuck, it's hard to tell. I really couldn't tell you what we'd do if he does get hurt again this year. But 7th time's the charm, they say. So we'll see. And as far as his weapons goes, we bring in Alabama transfer Ja'Cory Brooks, who was a former 5-star out of high school, the number 2 receiver in his class. I believe he's the class of 2022. Mm-hmm. The same draft class, or the same high school recruiting class as the best quarterback in the NFL, J.J. McCarthy. And Ja'Cory Brooks he's not going to kill you with his speed, but his route running is superb. His route running is really good. He's got crisp routes, and he's really good with his feet, and he'll be able to create separation with how good he is at, running the routes and getting open. He was Bryce Young's favorite. Now, I'm going to kind of contradict myself here, but he was Bryce Young's favorite deep threat in Bryce Young's Heisman year. He led the team in touchdowns as a sophomore with
I was going to say,
10, I think he had.
I was watching highlights the other day of an Alabama versus LSU game that was like crazy. It was extremely high scoring game. And if I'm not mistaken, I think Brooks had 2 or 3 touchdowns in that game alone. And I didn't even realize he popped out that type of way for Alabama. Right? I know he was hurt last year, but he was definitely Bryce Young's go-to guy. Like anytime in the red zone, he would 100% look his way first before going anywhere else.
Yeah, no, he was definitely his favorite end zone target, 100%. And his stats, as far as like receiving yards and everything, aren't gonna like pop off the screen or pop off the stat sheet or anything, but his touchdowns definitely will. Like I said, he led the team in receiving touchdowns, and I think he had maybe like 10 or 12 in that Bryce Young Heisman season. So that's some talent that we're bringing in. And again, I feel like I can say this about damn near everyone on the team, sadly, but he's dealt with injuries. He was hurt for a majority of last year, which is why he did transfer from Alabama, because he unfortunately got passed up on the depth chart by the endless amount of 5-stars that they have at every single position at that team. So regardless, from what I've heard, he is at 100% health right now. He is finally recovered from, I believe it was an ankle injury. And I believe he might have had to have surgery on it too. But he's fully healthy. He's out there, full pads, and he's really shown out, and he's really showing that 5-star talent that he obviously has. The next one, it hurts to mention him because unfortunately he just broke his collarbone in practice and is now going to miss at least the first half of the season. But South Alabama receiver Colin Lacey, who was top 5 in receiving yards last year and one of the best yards after catch receivers in the nation last year at South Alabama, transferred to Louisville, was looking like he was going to obviously be our starting slot guy, was looking like one of Shuck's go-to targets in training, and unfortunately he broke his collarbone, and now he's going to be out for the first half of the season. Yeah. So and there's no timetable for his return from what I've seen. So unfortunately, there's not much to talk about there because I can't really talk about what he's bringing to the team because he's not going to be there for the first half of the season. But when he does play, if he plays, I've seen a lot of people saying that there's a chance he just sits out the entire season in red shirts and maybe comes back next year. Right. Which I don't know how I feel about that, but I also wouldn't mind it because our schedule next year now, a little rough to admit this, but our schedule next year is a cupcake. I mean, I could see us going 11-1 next year. Genuinely, mm-hmm. Like our schedule next year is not good at all. And if he came back next year, and I don't know, let's say Pierce Clarkson's the starter next year, and Pierce figures some things out in the offseason and becomes what people think he can be, and Colin Lacey's his number 1 receiver, that's a deadly combo. Like I can't be upset about that. You know what I mean? Right. But it does suck to see him not getting in the pads for week 1. It definitely hurts. It's a big pain, I guess. But that's not to say that the wide receiver room is lacking. A name that you know, Parker, redshirt junior Chris Bell, who actually he might not even be a redshirt junior. He might just be a true junior. I don't I don't have that pulled up for me, but I believe you're looking it up. But regardless, Chris Bell, I believe he is around 6'2", 210, and he's a big body. He's a big body physical receiver who can go up and get the ball. He's shown it in the past, but He's kind of had some attitude problems here and there when things aren't going his way in games, and we really
He's a true junior.
okay. That's what I thought. It was either that or a redshirt junior, but
Mhm.
he's a true junior who was going to be a wide receiver 3 behind Lacey and Brooks, but it seems like he now steps into that wide receiver 2 spot, and the expectations for him going into this year were already high. People were already expecting a breakout season for him because we've seen the potential, we've seen the talent in the past 3 years already. People have been waiting for Chris Bell to pop out, and every year he's gotten better and better, and he's shown that he can be that reliable target. And this year the expectations just got even higher for him. He's going to have to step up big. He's going to have to be that wide receiver 2 or even wide receiver 1. There's a chance that he oversteps Ja'Cory Brooks as far as targets and stuff goes.
Or just Brooks gets hurt in general. Right?
Yeah, or if Brooks can't, or if Brooks can't stay healthy, then we're gonna really need Chris Bell to step up and be that guy for us, which I think he can be, and I think other people will agree with me as far as the Louisville fan base goes. But as far as the notable names, that's all I've got on the surface right now without spending too much time on it. I know there's plenty more, and I'm sorry for everyone who's like currently yelling at me that I didn't go in depth on every single person. I will at a later date, I promise. Just right now, we've got time limits, guys. We've got time limits. And Parker, I also wanted to open the field for you to ask me some specific questions about things.
Yeah. And so the first thing I do want to talk about is something that you did not. And this is just looking back at last year, where Louisville's offense was 95% throw, 5%, or I'm sorry, 95% run, 5% throw, right? They had 2 of the best running backs in all of the ACC, and Jawar Jordan and Isaac Guerrero. Both of them are gone now, and from a Kentucky fan on the outside looking in, it just seems like the running back room this year has a lot to be desired. Right? You bring back Mo Turner, who had some good moments last year, and now you also, I guess you technically also bring back Donald Chaney, but if I'm not mistaken, he really didn't see the floor, the field much.
Well, he's a transfer from Miami.
Oh, is he a transfer? Okay,
yeah.
Okay, so that's why he didn't see the field for Louisville. So you bring in both those guys. You did have Penny Boone at one point. Was he with the other Tennessee guy that kind of left around the same time? Yeah. So miss out on him, but so now you're looking at a running back room that mainly consists of Chaney and Turner, with, in my eyes, a very stacked offensive line. I shouldn't say are you expecting similar production from your running back room this season compared to last season, but are you still expecting Louisville to rely heavily on the run game like they did last year? Like, it was like last year they got if they can get the legs moving, they could get the arms moving. Like, they could get, after they got the run game going, the pass game just kind of fell naturally to them. Do you expect kind of the same thing, or do you think it's kind of going to be reversed now?
I think it'll be a little bit reversed, but not like drastically. Like I think it'll just be more of an even split. Last year, I think the reason why the run game was so strong, obviously, like you mentioned, we had a great O-line and we had 2 great running backs. Like when Jawar Jordan got hurt, who would have thought that we had literally the next guy up in Isaac Guerrero? So that was kind of like a flash in the pan moment. You know what I mean?
Right.
This year, last year, I think the run game was so strong also because of the restrictions we had at quarterback. I think it's pretty well known. And when I say this, I'm not saying that this is the only reason Jack Plummer was our quarterback, but it's definitely one of the biggest contributing factors, is that he had already played for Brom in the past at Purdue. He already knew Brom's system and how Brom worked and how Brom coached. So coming in, he was a quarterback that knew the style, knew the playbook, and everything like that already. And it was kind of a scramble pickup. Obviously, it worked out to an extent. And the run game was so strong because of that restriction there. This year, I think if Tyler Shuck stays healthy, that can open up the pass game significantly more than it was last year, and I think that can also help the running backs kind of have more moments where the defense maybe isn't expecting a run play. You know what I mean? Last year when we were 95% run, it was almost like we saw it. Pitt, one of the main reasons that they beat us is because they just stacked the box because they knew that we were going to run the ball 90% of the time. Run, run, run. They stacked the box and they beat us. Every team after that, you look at every team after Pitt, what did they do? They stacked the box because they knew we were going to run. And that was our downfall last year. Every team started to stack the box, and we couldn't pass the ball because we were really restricted, and so we just had to keep running into the 60 linemen that were stacking the box there. So it was rough last year. This year, I think we'll get more of a mix. And with Mo Turner, one thing that you get a little more of that I don't think necessarily we had last year in the running back room, not to say that they weren't great at it, because they definitely were, especially Jawar Jordan. But Mo Turner brings very good receiving back qualities. Obviously, his running skills are very good as well. He's a very speedy guy. He's very fast, which is one thing that's very important. And then obviously Donald Chaney is just a brute. He's a big guy. So he's definitely going to be more of like our power back type of guy, like our goal line type of guy. And then two names I want to bring up to you, Parker, who I don't want to overlook here are redshirt freshman Kewan Brown, who got some touches last year in the Murray State game, which I don't know if you went to that one with me or not.
I was not there. I was not at the Murray State game. No.
Okay. So Kewan Brown is a redshirt freshman. He is from, I'm going to get this wrong, but I'm going to guess Florida. I believe it's Florida. It's either Florida or Georgia, one of the two. But he is very underrated speed, and he has very underrated strength. He's a very good mixture of both. He was a 3-star running back out of high school, and he showed a lot of good flashes in those touches that he had in the Murray State game. And he's going to see the field this year. He's very talented. It's very hard to keep that kid off the field. And then the next name I want to bring up to you, which this might come up as a shocker to you, Parker, but I also mentioned his name earlier in a text message to you. And that's true freshman Isaac Brown. He is from Homestead, Florida, and he is a speedster. Speedster. He's a true freshman, and there are guys on the team who say that this kid is the fastest player on the team.
Oh, wow.
He ran track in high school, obviously. I feel like that's a given if you're going to be called the fastest player on the team. But, again, like I said with Kewan Brown, just a kid with astronomical talent and is going to be very hard to keep off the field. Even as a true freshman, he's going to see touches. Whether it's 3 touches a game, he's going to see the field as a true freshman, and knowing him and seeing what I've seen from him already, like in the spring game or in open practices, et cetera, he's going to make them count. He's a very gritty player. He's a very good player. He's a 4-star true freshman out of Homestead, Florida, and I'm very excited to see him and his future here. Obviously, assuming he stays here. But yeah, very promising player, very exciting. So to loop it all back to what you said about the running back room, they leave a lot to desire. Yes, but I don't think that is a negative thing, because I think that they all have the talent to show that there really is no drop-off from last year. They might not have the stats that the players had last year, referencing Jawar Jordan and Isaac Orindo, but I think the run game will still be just as good. Maybe not. It won't be. I don't think it'll be better. Let's be honest, because we were mostly run last year, so it's kind of hard to be better than a mostly run team. But I think the unit as a whole, like each player you see combined, we'll see a very good run game from the Louisville Cardinals this year, and I'm very excited to see them all play because they all have their own unique skills and talents that they bring to the table.
Okay, yeah, for sure, definitely. And so that also, kind of saying balanced attack leads me to my next question. And I do want to go back to Tyler Shuck for a minute in the quarterback play because you do a deep dive on his stats. And you said that every game that he has started and played they played all 4 quarters. He's never lost, or if he has, it's only one game. But the thing that is kind of concerning, if you just look at his stats, yeah, he might have only played 6 or 7 games in a season max. His career high in a season touchdowns thrown is only 7. He is not a high passing touchdown player. Now he's not a turnover. He's not turning the ball over a lot. Like he's got very minimal turnovers, right? Because I think if you're a high turnover guy and you have that injury history, you're probably out of football altogether. Or if not, you're probably in JUCO. So he doesn't turn the ball over a lot, but he also does not throw what seems like a ton of touchdowns. Now, with that being said, he's coming from Texas Tech, which I think Louisville this year, even minus Colin Lacey, just has a better receiving core than Texas Tech ever had for him, and it might even be back in Oregon. I don't know off the top of my head who was in Oregon at that time as far as receivers go, but for all we know, this is the best receiving core he has had. And I kind of am repeating myself here, but do you think we're seeing? Are we is I think we'll definitely see, especially if he stays healthy, a production or a increase in passing touchdowns thrown by Shuck. But it seems like his kind of play style or how coaches played him is once they get to the red zone or just deep into the opponent's territory, they tend to run the ball a lot with him or run the ball with him at the quarterback. Are we going to see something similar to that? Obviously, you don't know, right? You're not at every practice. You don't know what they're building up. But do you think that we're going to see an increase of touchdown passes, or do you think that once they get to the red zone, they're going to be more of a run team kind to just punch you in your mouth and force the ball into the end zone? I know that was a very long and complicated question.
No, you're good. Well, so for one, I think if you're within 5 yards, I think the most common answer is going to be to just pound it
Right, yeah,
down your
yeah, of
throat.
course, of
Pause.
course. But what about like the 20-yard line, like just
Yeah,
like
right,
barely
right.
into the red zone?
So I think one thing is if you look back at Texas Tech and you look back at Oregon, there were run plays schemed for Tyler Shuck because he kind of has some wheels on him. The boy can run, or the man, I guess. The man can run. He's got some wheels on him, and he can definitely be a mobile quarterback if he has to be. And Jeff Brom's already said before, they're not going to shy away from him running the ball either. Like they might scheme up a run play for him if they have to, but I think the main focus is going to be to just keep him in the pocket and keep him protected because obviously with that injury history, granted, it is all freak accidents. I mean, he has had the worst luck when it comes to injuries. I genuinely don't think you can get worse luck than what he's had. They've all been freak accidents. It's not like he's spraining an ankle every other week and having to sit out every other week. You know what I mean, Parker?
Right.
He's having these freak accidents that are keeping him out for full seasons. So, I think the protection factor is big this year. I think they're definitely going to want to protect him a lot. But I also don't think they're going to shy away from running the ball with him, that is. I would say from 20 yards, from like the 20-yard line, I would assume, I mean, obviously I'm not the coach. I don't see these guys every
All
day.
speculation.
Yeah, so I'm not entirely sure what they're going to do or what they're going to pull out, but I would assume that we're going to see more pass until maybe we get to like the goal line, the actual goal line.
Okay. Yeah.
Unless the team we play isn't good at rush defense, then in that case I can see us running the ball more.
So you definitely think that we are going to see a bunch load, and obviously you got to take it with a grain of salt, saying that he's only thrown 7 touchdowns in a season. You got to take that with a grain of salt because we don't necessarily know. Like he could have played 7 of those games. He could have only really played like 5 of those games completely. So, but you definitely think that we are going to see a big increase from Shuck as far as passing yards, passing touchdowns go, all the passing statistics in a very high percentage clip.
Well, I mean, statistically, sorry, statistically, we'd have to, right? If he stays healthy all year, then we surely
Yeah,
would.
yeah.
We surely would see an increase in that. Um, Now, if we wanted to knock on wood, shorten that to his average of 7 games a year, uh, I really couldn't tell you if we'd see an uptick in that as far as that goes.
Right, right.
Um, but yeah, no, I think we'd surely see an uptick in his statistical aspect, assuming he stays healthy for the full season. Yeah, I think we'll see. I think he will have a better statistical season this year than Jack Plummer did last year.
Okay. Wow.
I'll
Wow.
put it I'll put it that way.
That's that is, to be honest, that's bold words. Only because as much as he did struggle passing the ball, Plummer did lead. He was the leader of that very historic Louisville team that went on to the ACC championship. So to say that you're expecting him to have a better year overall, which at the end of the day is probably not too hard to beat. I don't know what Plummer's stats are right here. I don't have them in front of me, but to say that he's going to have a better year than Plummer just because the results that Plummer had is promising.
Yeah,
As Louisville for
I
Louisville.
uh I got him for you right here. I now all right. So I'll go ahead and write this down. We can write this down. If Tyler Shuck stays healthy all year and he doesn't get hurt, he will do better than 3,063 yards, 21 touchdowns, and 12 interceptions,
Okay, yeah. I mean,
which
you
is
like
very doable, by the way. That is a very
it's
beautiful,
very
beatable
doable, but then
stat line.
you also got to put into the fact that I think that he is having the better receiving core than he's ever had at Texas Tech or Oregon. But if he did play a full season, I mean, I feel like those are at Texas Tech and Oregon. If he played a full season, those are kind of the stats that we would be looking at from him. Just kind of speculating like he is going to be on this pace the entire time. But again, like I said, better receivers, probably a better O line.
Yeah, sure, sure, but like you said yourself, it's all just pure speculation because we don't have a full season from Tyler Shuck, so we really don't know
Exactly.
what he would do in a full season. So hopefully
Exactly.
we get to see what he would do in a full season this year, and it's exciting. It's exciting, but it's also it's got us chomping at the bit a little bit because we kind of just want to. And I don't mean this in a negative way, but if he's gonna get hurt, I just hope it happens earlier than later because
Oh yeah, yeah.
that would suck if we start 5-6-0 and we have to go into Miami and then he gets hurt for the season against Virginia. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? Like that would be brutal. So, not that I hope he gets hurt. I hope he stays healthy for the full year. So we'll definitely see. But I'm excited.
And that is actually a perfect segue into my next and I guess more or less final question, but I guess we'll definitely spend some time on it. Looking at Louisville's schedule. They are in the ACC, and I'm not even going to sugarcoat it. The ACC is the worst conference in football. I don't care. They're the worst conference in football overall. I'm taking the Big 12 over them. But Louisville's schedule overall is a lot more difficult than they had last year. Their conference schedule, their entire schedule. Looking more in depth on their conference schedule, some might say because you guys go to Clemson this year, it might be a little bit more difficult. But Louisville does kind of look out with their road games other than Clemson. A lot of their road games are lower tiered opponents. Let me get their schedule. I got it right here. Um, they play teams like Virginia on the road, right? They play teams like Stanford, and yeah, you got the traveling from Stanford. You got to travel all the way to what was that, California? I think Stanford's in.
Mm-hmm.
You got to travel all the way there to play them, but I'm not expecting too much from Stanford, which I'm sure we kind of are going to touch on a lot of this as far as the conference as a whole next week. So I don't want to spend too much time on it, but play with teams like Virginia, Stanford, maybe even Boston College to see what they really look like. I don't know too much about Boston College, but kind of escapes with their road games are not top tier road games in conference play. Give me a prediction. Are you expecting what are you expecting this year for overall record, I should say, from Louisville this year?
I mean, listen, I'm an honest man. I'm an honest fan. I'm not going to sit here and say we're going to go 10-2 again. I'm not going to sit here and say we're going to go 11-1. I think right now, looking at the schedule, I think our ceiling is 10-2 again. Maybe even 11-1. But I think right now what my prediction would be is 8-4 or 9-3 is what I would predict right now.
And I guess just who would you say those losses would be to?
The losses are I'm gonna say the 8-4 record, but then I'll explain why it can be 9-3. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, you're good.
But
Take your time.
I believe the losses could be Notre Dame, Miami, Clemson, and Kentucky. That's the 8-4 record. Now let me explain why, and then I'll explain why I think it could be 9-3 as well. Notre Dame, that's at Notre Dame. That's at South Bend. Self-explanatory. Mm-hmm. It's also Notre Dame. They're ranked 7th going into this season. Which I believe that's a little bit too much. I think they're getting overhyped, but that's Notre Dame every single season. So
I think that they're also getting overhyped, but I do like Notre Dame a little bit better this year than I do last year. I will say that.
I do as well. No, I do as well. I like their team. I like the Riley Leonard pickup, and I like the additions they got for him at receiver and everything. But however, I do think not that he's a terrible coach, but I don't think Marcus Freeman is necessarily what Notre Dame fans expect from a coach. Like for example, what they got from a Brian Kelly. Mm-hmm. It is what it is. That's just my personal opinion of him right now. I think he's going into his 3rd or 4th season at Notre Dame, so he could definitely prove me wrong this year. I want him to because I like him. But I obviously want to beat him. So, yeah, I think they're getting overhyped this year. So that is definitely a toss-up for me right there. That could either be a win or a loss, but it's very tough. Again, at South Bend, very tough. And a game that you and me are thinking about going to. Probably will go to. Hope we go to. It's apparently already sold out, so seems like Notre Dame fans are chomping at the bit to get revenge on us. Yeah, they want that revenge.
Notre Dame, I'm telling you right now, if we do make it to South Bend will be rocking in that game. Whether Louisville is ranked by then, which I think they will be, whether they're ranked or not, South Bend's going to be rocking for that game. 100%.
Yeah, it should be fun. Okay, second game, Miami. Again, I think they're getting overhyped because of who they are and what their history is. However, they did have the best transfer class, according to 247. They're bringing in Cam Ward and Damian Martinez, just to name literally 2 out of the many other guys that they brought in. They also have Xavier Restrepo, who is one of the best returning receivers in the ACC. We'll get more into that next week, obviously. But that's 3 guys right there on the offense that make that offense extremely deadly. So regardless of if I think they're overhyped or not, that is a high-powered offense, and that is a team that is going to score points. However, it is at LNN. It's at home this year. I think that's a game that Louisville fans are going to show out for. Assuming that Miami is as good as people think they will be, then they should hypothetically be undefeated by that game, or at least 1 loss by that point. So that should be a very highly touted game to watch that week. So that's 2 games right there. Third game, at Clemson. We've never beaten Clemson since joining the ACC. Enough said.
Wow.
And it's also...
So what was that? What's that, 10 years? Not that you guys played 10 years, but have you guys joined?
Yeah, we've been in the ACC for about 10, 11 years now, but we haven't, like you said, we haven't played them 10 years. But since joining the ACC, we've never beaten Clemson. It's at Death Valley. I have literally no past experience to say that we're going to beat them. So that's 3. But I will mention, I feel like I'm going to say this about every single team that I'm listing here, except for Kentucky, but I'll get to that. But Clemson, I think they're overhyped. I don't believe in Cade Klubnik. He showed very strong negatives last year. Dabo refuses to adapt his game. He refuses to use the transfer portal. He strictly sticks to recruiting high school kids, and in my opinion, we're gonna see how well that works in today's day and age. We're gonna see how well it works getting high school kids every single year instead of going out and getting experienced players. Um,
It's definitely a kind of a make or break type of
it
year
is.
for
It
Dabo.
is.
Like
It
I
a
feel like
hundred.
if Clemson goes 7-5 again like they did last year, he's out 100%.
I don't know if he'll be out, but that's definitely the hot seat. Because you got to
Oh
think
yeah, yeah,
that you got to think that's a coach that's won them multiple national championships at this point, and he turned
yeah.
them
But
from nothing to something. So I think he's got a job there for the rest of his life, unless the fan base runs him out like Cal. I mean,
I was literally about to say that.
two totally different situations in my opinion, but you get what I'm saying. The fan base could
Mhm.
definitely turn on him heavy if they go 7-5 again, and that seat's definitely going to begin to get a little hot for him.
Yeah,
But that's three. I just have no evidence to prove that we will beat them, so I'll
fair enough.
chop that down as a L. And then I've got Kentucky. We've lost 5 years in a row, unless you look at the record
Stop,
books, and then
stop,
we've only
stop,
lost 3 years in a row.
stop,
Uh,
stop.
so depending on who you are, if you're a Louisville fan, they're on a 3-game win streak. If you're a Kentucky fan, you're on a 5-game win streak. Regardless,
And
five,
Louisville doesn't have a 2019 national championship.
regardless, that's 5 years in a row that we've lost to Kentucky. That's 5 years in a row that I've seen us lose to Kentucky. So I'm gonna say they're on a 5-game winning streak, and until we beat them, I'm sorry guys, but I can't say we're gonna beat them, and it's at Kroger Field. So, um, until we change it, I can't say that we're going to beat them because at this point, I've seen 5 years in a row where I've been like, yeah, we're going to beat them, and then we haven't. And after last year, I don't really know what to say about that game because last year we should have had that in the books. Last year we had every reason to win that game, and we pretty much handed it to y'all. So, yeah, just sort of like Clemson. In recent years, I have no reason to believe that we will beat you guys. So that's my four. Now to go back to my 9-3, 8-4 part, I believe that we can go 9-3 because I believe that we will win one of two games, Notre Dame and Miami.
Mm-hmm.
I believe we will win one of those two games, and that is where I believe the 9-3 comes from.
And me personally, as of right now, I'm saying 9-3 and that is losses to Notre Dame, Clemson, and Kentucky. I think even if Miami is as good as people say they are, which you just don't know, especially after last year, I think Louisville most definitely handles business at, whenever Miami comes to town. And I think that is we're gonna see a similar crowd, maybe not as big because last year was crazy, but a similar crowd to the Notre Dame game last year. It's gonna be that just like energetic, that loud, because that's really their first and only real big time game at L&N this year. If you ask me, yeah, I get that there's crucial games and big time games, but I think that is definitely the mecca of L&N this year.
The only reason I do that is I'm higher on SMU than I think like most of the country is. So I think that
Fair enough.
game.
Fair enough.
I think that game. I think that game is more important, and I think it should be more important to more people than I think it will. Like I don't think the game's going to sell out or anything. I don't think it'll be anywhere close to selling out. But I mean, if you ask me, I think it should be a pretty well attended game because I like SMU. I like their
Right.
chances year one. So
Okay. Okay. That's fair enough. That's fair enough. But anyways, I think that I think 9-3, and very easily could it be 10-2. You could very easily beat Kentucky. As of right now, I'm pretty stuck that you guys do lose to Notre Dame and Clemson. But I'm saying 9-3 very easily could be 10-2 is my prediction for Louisville. Obviously, you're the expert on Louisville here. You do more of the deep dive on them. But I think Louisville is going to be in for it. Now, is that gonna is do you think 10-2 gets Louisville into an ACC championship game this year?
um, I want to say yes, but with with what your prediction was with losses to Notre Dame and Clemson, I don't think it would because I think
Well, I guess
Clemson would have that head-to-head win over us, and we
that
don't
would only
play
be a
it. We
one
don't.
loss.
It would be, but we don't play NC State and Florida State, and they could also have very good conference records. So,
But to be fair, though, Clemson also plays Florida State. So if in some world, if Clemson beats Louisville and also beats Florida State, obviously you don't know.
right,
Like you got NC State, Virginia Tech, SMU, Miami,
right.
high on all those teams. But if
They actually
Clemson somehow
they actually play NC State too because they're rivals. I forgot about that.
Florida State,
No,
or
NC State and
oh, it's
Clemson,
Clemson.
they're
Yeah,
in-state
that's right.
rivals, so they play each other on rivalry
So
week.
I mean, if
So then,
Clemson doesn't beat you,
10-2, 10-2 would get us in the ACC championship game again. I think.
if Clemson does beat you, you kind of have to immediately like take in the hurtness of losing that game and start like low key cheering your ass off for them because you need them to kind of just
Yeah,
tear through
no,
everybody
yeah,
else at the top of the ACC.
yeah, pretty much. Well, but also technically, if they beat us and then lost to everyone else, it also would help us out because I
Yeah,
think
fair
I
enough.
think I
That's
think
fair.
I think NC State and Florida State play each other too, at some point. Everyone else kind of plays each other while we kind of just walk by,
Cruise guy, like
which
there,
is it's odd to like cheer for, but I guess if you're a Louisville fan, it's something to be like excited about.
no, yeah, I really
But
think that
yeah.
I know I made those comments at the beginning where I said that the Big 12 is better than the ACC, and I do believe that. But I also think that the ACC is way more fun than it's going to be last year. It's going to be, I think, even if you have your favorites, which is Clemson, Miami, Florida State, Louisville, it's going to be an absolute bloodbath, and everyone is going to be right there. Like I feel like there could very easily be 8 teams that are going to have a chance to make the championship on like week 10. You know, like I genuinely think no one's going to be out of the question, or a lot of teams are not going to be out of the question. It's gonna be fun.
I got to be honest with you, Parker. The ACC is kind of just a lesser version of the Big 12 in the sense that if you look at the Big 12, you literally look at the Big 12 and go, "Oh, there's like 10 teams here competing to win this conference this year."
Yeah.
Like you look at the Big 12 and you literally go, "I have no clue who's winning this conference this year."
Yeah, no,
It could be Kansas State, it could be Oklahoma State, it could be Kansas, it could be Utah. Yeah, like there's literally 10 teams in that conference that could win. And then you look at the ACC and you go, "Oh, there's literally 5 teams that could win this conference this year." So it's exactly like the Big 12, just a way less version of it, which I think a lot of people overlook when it comes to looking at how entertaining conferences are. Because I think the ACC race is going to be fun this year. I think it's going to be very tight.
I really do too.
Especially with how people's schedules panned out this year, it made it very weird because I don't think there's very many like head-to-head matchups to like compare or like go after, or the race is just going to be very tight essentially is what I'm saying. But
Florida State. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, but like we said, it's only going to be between 4 or 5 teams, whereas the Big 12's like the entire conference.
I mean, I think if you are watching the ACC this year as a whole, not as one team, you got to keep your eyes on Florida State, right? Because out of all the teams, they are the ones that kind of go through the gauntlet the most. They don't play Louisville, but they got Miami, they got Clemson. You said they got NC State. Like those 3 alone, those are all 3-peat teams that could very easily make the ACC championship. And then I guess technically throw in
Sorry,
Florida State here, that's all 4 teams.
I meant Florida State. I meant Clemson has NC State, not Florida State.
That's right. I'm sorry, but they might. I don't even know if they do play them. They might.
They don't. No, they don't.
They don't.
They still have. Regardless, they still have a tough ass schedule.
Have a tougher schedule. I think Florida State will definitely be the team to watch this year, as far as they are going to decide whether it's their own fate or someone else's fate. They are going to decide a lot as far as who is going to be where in the ACC this year. A lot's going to be riding on the performance of Florida State. But again, we can do an actual deep dive on the ACC next week because I want to.
Yeah. I'll say this. I mean, like you said, we'll do another deep dive like later this weekend or something. But because I would like to get the ACC and SEC out of the way since those are our conferences. But I think there's a very real chance that Florida State could have hangover season, I guess is a good way to put it.
Oh yeah, I do
But
too. I do too.
I'll go. We can go more in depth in that at a later point. But Parker, I don't want to rush things because the Louisville part took a little bit longer than we wanted it to.
That's fine.
But
That's fine.
I believe it is only fair to now give you the time to go over your team, the coveted Kentucky Wildcats.
Yeah, yeah. So last year, just a very simple recap of last year. We go. What is that? We go 7-6, right? Am I right on that? I think 7-6
Yeah,
with the bowl game. Go 7-6.
yeah, with the bowl game, yeah.
Very underwhelming, all things considered. Obviously, we did beat Louisville, which you ask. It feels like a lot of our Kentucky fans that they think it's a success. I don't. I was like, yeah, it's cool that we beat Louisville. We beat them on a very up year for Louisville, but I mean, we still lost every other major game than that. Like our next best win after that is Vanderbilt. Maybe I could be totally wrong on that, but kind of disappointing. We did go into an absolute shootout with Clemson, which was a very fun game, and nobody was mad on the Kentucky side that we lost that game to Clemson last year. Very fun shootout game. And that just we did fall short and kind of just summed up the rest of our season. We had a huge lead, blew it, and just like legitimately summed up our season. Going into this year, I guess I should also say just two little side notes. One, Mark Stoops almost left for Texas A&M, which is nothing new. Everyone knew that. Almost left, and kind of like
Hold on. I'm sorry. I don't mean to interrupt you. A few months ago, when Mark Stoops did that, and we posted that TikTok, and you got a lot of hate from BBN about it. But
oh,
everyone,
yeah,
everyone was saying you were wrong. I beg you all to do more research into that because that man was out the door until the A&M fan base rejected him themselves and forced A&M to hire Mike Elko instead of Mark Stoops. And then Mark Stoops quietly came back and pretended like nothing happened. You can attack me all you want for saying that. I don't care. I'm a Louisville fan, but don't hate on my boy Parker because he was totally right when he said that.
And I don't know if I'll talk about it today, but I do at some point here in the near future, I want to have an entire rant about Mark Stoops because as much as I'm there's a little bit of frustration with me and Mark Stoops right now. I love the man. I do not want to see him go. And again, I'll talk into it how just kind of the university just really hasn't been treating him right, and the fan base hasn't really been treating him right. But anyways, he somewhat leaves for A&M, then comes back. Just a few weeks ago, our football team gets in trouble for the 2021 season or 2022 season, one of the two, as like I think 12 players, maybe even more than that, maybe 14 players, got paid from a hospital for work they did not do.
Despicable.
They weren't stealing; they did not steal, but they did falsely clock in hours for stuff they did not do and got paid for. One of those being Chris Rodriguez, probably the most notable name from that bunch. Chris Rodriguez, who was an absolute stud running back for Kentucky in those early 2020 years. But we get that whole season technically stripped. Okay, yeah. If you want to strip that, Louisville doesn't have a national championship. They only have 2 national championships in basketball, so I'm fine with it. If you want to do that, we can play that game. But in the record books, it's not there, and Kentucky goes on probation, which I still don't necessarily even understand what the probation is
I
because
have no
we
clue
don't
either.
have any like obviously the university is going to lose a lot of money for losing the that like getting that bowl game stripped from us. The university itself is going to lose a lot of money from that, but we're not losing anything transfer wise, not losing any type of scholarships or recruiting wise, no postseason bans or anything like that. Just probation. They just Kentucky's on probation, whatever that means. I have no clue. But now looking into this, another year that Stoops brings in a pretty good transfer class. I think past years at this point, in past years, we could have said that he has brought in better transfer classes than this year. But I really think it was more of a quality over quantity type of thing this year instead of just bringing in an overhaul of transfers because Kentucky has one of the most returning players in the SEC this year. I know defensively we have the most returning players, but as a whole, I think we're like second or third as just total returning players. So I do want to talk about the defense, and just like you said, our two best players, maybe on the team, but definitely defensively, is a D lineman and a cornerback, exactly like how Louisville's is, which is kind of funny to think. The D lineman is Big Dion Walker, who is um, just a stud. I mean, you can just the 6'6" frame itself can speak for how good he is. A potential top 5, maybe even I think it's going to be more like top 15-ish draft pick as far
He's
as
a
the new mock draft comes out.
he's a top 10 lock. I'll
Top
say
10,
it.
top 10.
I'll say it right now. He's a top 10 lock.
But still, he has got big plans going into next year. And then at cornerback, we got a returning Maxwell Harrison, who is put on a lot of weight from last year, which I am super, super excited about how much weight he put on. He just looks like a unit now. If you there's a bunch of videos on social media now of him working out, and he just looks like a freaking unit. I'm super excited to see Maxwell uh, suit up again this year. And then you look at our other cornerbacks, and we our cornerback room is great, is really great. So behind Harrison, we got Jansen Dunn, who was in and out of the lineup last year, but when he did play, he was very consistent as far as not a big deflection guy, not a big interception guy, but a very just on your hip type of guy. He is going to follow you. He is just as good as running routes as other receivers. And then you got JQ Hardaway. JQ Hardaway is the definitely the second guy. And if I had to guess, probably going to be the D guy next year because I'm expecting Harrison to go to the draft after this year. Hardaway will be the guy next year, and I'm super excited to see what he does rebounding a monster 2023 season. So I am really, really, really liking that top 3 cornerbacks right there. All of them have a lot to a little to a lot experience playing SEC ball last year, and so it's definitely going to be exciting to see it just because last year, I think that we got burnt a lot defensively. Other than Harrison and sometimes Hardaway, I feel like once you took those two out of the equation, Kentucky was getting burnt a lot on just not just like full on streaks down the field, just getting outran, but just absolutely could not stay with their mans at all. And so that was frustrating. But I think this year we're going to see a lot more improvement as far as the DB room goes. And then you go further back to our safeties, and we got DJ Waller, who is a sophomore who is gonna get some playing time. Alex Afari, who is expected to have a monster year this year, and I'm super excited to see Alex Afari. Christian Story, who is a transfer from Alabama, who um, was kind of on and off the field last year for Bama. But I'm super excited to see what he does here and kind of like a new home. Definitely a captain being his senior year. Christian Story should be very solid. We got Jordan Lovett, who was not consistently in the lineup last year. He was healthy, but he just didn't really see a lot of playing time, did here and there. I'm expecting him to take a jump himself. I'm a huge Jordan Lovett fan. But then moving up forward to our D line, like I said, we got Big Dion, and he's going to just absolutely just control that defensive line and hopefully make it absolute hell for offensive lines. I mean, Josh, you saw it this might have been a few months ago, that the play that went viral of Dion, who was on the line and dropped back into coverage, like that video went mega viral, even though it happened against the Florida game, which was damn near a year ago. It went super viral after whoever posted it. Like this big old Dion Walker drops back into coverage and defends this Florida player and then just rocks his shit. Man, I'm telling you, if Dion can somehow, if they can get Dion to do that more, that's an anomaly, whatever,
Anomaly.
however you said anomaly. Um, I really hope to see Walker kind of drop back into coverage, even if he shouldn't be. Maybe he gets like absolutely torched if he does drop back into coverage. I think it's awesome to see, and so I'm super excited to see what Dion brings. And just as a whole, that whole unit, um, that we are a defensive team for sure this year. Like, I mean, Stoops has, I mean, that's kind of the Stoops special is to have a really good defense and a lackluster offense. But I'm really excited for the defense. I think we're going to be absolutely stout. Oh, probably because I didn't even talk about some of our linebackers that we have coming in. I don't know how I just forgot about that. starting out, we got J.J. Weaver, who's been there since World War II. The dude has. I'm dead ass. I'm pretty sure he's got just as many fingers on his right or left hand, or whatever hand it is. He's got 6 fingers as he does eligibility. Like the dude has been there forever. But he's coming back as a 45-year-old senior. Obviously, going to be one of the captains of that team. I don't expect any less production coming from him. He's going to bring the intensity. He's going to bring just the fan favoriteness out of the team and just out of himself. Um, we got Jomaz. Jomaz Dumas Johnson, I believe is how you say it. Who transferred in from Georgia, and for a lot of people that don't know too much about him, he has battled a little bit with injuries, but when he does play, he is like very notably has been the captain of some of these Georgia teams. He has been the guy to call some audibles. He is the guy that everyone looks to. Like Johnson was the absolute captain of some of those Georgia teams. Obviously, there was players better than him because those Georgia defenses were insane. But definitely just that guy that you could trust to do his job, get everything done. Johnson is going. I'm super probably which we'll talk about some on the offense. He might be my most excited transfer we have coming in this year because I really, if he can stay healthy, I really want to see him excel here in Lexington because I think if he does excel, he's going to have an absolute monster year. He is a senior too, by the way, so we'll only have him for this year. But yeah, we got him. Our linebacking room, which Josh, you've even told me, a lot of people are saying that is one of, I don't want to say the best, but one of the best in the SEC entirely. Our linebacker room is
Country.
stacked to the brim. So that basically sums up our defense as a whole. Moving on to the offensive side of the ball is where it does get a little tricky because of a couple different factors. I do want to start out with our wide receivers. We got, so obviously you got the two main guys, or the two most well known here in Lexington, which is B7, Barian Brown, and D6, Dane Key. Both of those guys have been there since they were freshmen. They're not transfers. They've literally just worked their ways up through the system. And now they are going to be juniors and absolute leaders of this team. But the thing is, with these two, and I'll spend more time on Barian here in a second, but the thing with both of them is they really struggled with drops last year. Like, kind of concerning, especially Dane Key. Dane Key did have some very nice catches, like that one against Louisville. He had practically a one-handed catch in the end zone against Louisville. So he does have flashes of moments, but he also dropped a lot. Barian did the same thing, but the thing about Barian is he's just so fast and electric. He's probably the biggest fan favorite on this entire team. Everyone knows Barian Brown. But he's good for a big player too, but he's not going to be somebody that is going to catch nine catches, or at least he hasn't been up until this point. Hasn't been the guy to catch 9 balls a game for 180 yards, right? He hasn't been the go-to receiver. Obviously he does do returns and stuff like that, but I really hope to see Barian take that next step where I already think he's a top 10 receiver in the SEC this year. I hope he takes that next step to actually put him into the upper echelon of receivers come the end of the year. Whether he ends up leaving for the draft this year or not, that's a story for another day. But I hope he definitely by the end of the year has his name as a top tier receiver in the SEC. But again, it just like Dane Key, he struggled with drops a lot. Like it was just something that you could expect Dane Key to drop 2 balls a game and Barian drop 1 a game. It was so frustrating. And obviously last year you had Devin Leary, who was struggled with just struggled overall last year. He did not play that good at all. But yeah, that basically Barian Brown and Dane Key, I'm hoping take a big step. And then we get a transfer in Jamori Macklin from North Texas. Give me 1 second really quick, Josh. Um, we have Jamori Macklin from North Texas, who is an absolute stud. He was with Colin Lacey as far as like the top tier G5 transfers. Um, he is, I forgot what his stats is. I don't have his stats put up right here, but he was one of the top guys as far as just yards after catch. He was a brutal weapon as far as once he caught the ball, he could make plays happen. So you throw him in with the other two, throw him in with Key and Brown, and you have yourself a can be very impressive receiving core. So receivers are cool. I like where the receivers are at. Move on to our running back room very, very quickly. You have Chip Trayanum come from Ohio State, who unfortunately has fractured his hand, but is only going to be out for 2 weeks. So it's not too much of a loss. It is a big loss whenever I talk about the schedule, but we will have him back before like the real meat of our season. Behind him, you got Sumo, who's been at Kentucky forever. He's a senior as well. Always kind of played the backup row there. And then right behind him, Josh, is a guy that I briefly talked to you about who has been absolutely turning heads in training camps, and that is Jamarian Wilcox, who is a redshirt freshman. He supposedly has been absolutely torching, I shouldn't say torching, but is absolutely tearing through our defense in training camps. Whether that's a good thing, maybe our defense isn't that good, but he has looked very impressive come training camps. And a lot of people are saying the first 2 weeks, he could very easily be running back one. He could be our 3-down back, a full 3-down back. I don't think he will. I think he'll just be a 2-down back, but very easily could be a 3-down back come the first 2 weeks of the season. And then even behind him, you got Jason Patterson, who I don't expect to see much playing time from him this year. I think he kind of has another sit-out year, but Patterson is obviously going to be great here in a couple years. I mean, all the potential, all the intangibles are there for Patterson to excel. And then finally, you got the quarterback, Brock Vandagriff. Comes from Georgia, but does not play. Does not play. He is definitely the biggest question on our entire team. He spent, 2 years at Georgia, I believe, maybe 3 years at Georgia. Sat at least 1 year behind Stetson Bennett, who was the greatest quarterback in Georgia history, right? Like, undoubtedly, in my opinion, Stetson Bennett's the greatest quarterback Georgia's ever had. Then this past year sits behind Carson Beck, who is, again, arguably the best quarterback in football this year. Again, I don't think so, but I think that he is definitely top three, just an absolute elite quarterback. So you sit there and look at Vandagriff and you wonder, is it that he struggles because maybe he hasn't played yet because he's been struggling in practice and he's just really not that good. He's not what everyone thought he was going to be. Or is it because he hasn't played because he has been sitting behind Carson Beck and Stetson Bennett for the past 2 years. Like he has been like who was ever going to play over those two? Not many people. Maybe Quinn Ewers is the only person you could say. But so I mean it nobody knows. Nobody knows yet. I know Bush Hamden, our new offensive coordinator from Boise State, said that he is going to look to play a little bit of dual quarterback with Gavin Wimsatt from Rutgers, who did not throw the ball good at all last year. You can look his stats up. He struggled heavily throwing the ball, but he's more athletic, faster, more agile than Vandagriff. So we could see, I would say if we do see that dual quarterback, it would kind of just be like run options, kind of like some just quarterbacks, like a design quarterback run for Wimsatt, and somebody who can also, if just need to be, can make the most basic throws in a play. So Vandagriff definitely the biggest question in our quarterback room. No, not in our quarterback room, in our entire room, our entire team altogether. Vandagriff is going to either make or break this season. But I'm really excited for the season. I think this team has a boatload of talent that can really shine this year, and I'm hoping we make some noise here in the SEC.
Yeah, so a couple questions I've got for you before we get to the schedule prediction for you. As you said, Brock Vandagriff and his, whether you want to call it struggles or just unluckiness as far as sitting at Georgia goes, what, I guess, do you expect from him after the last few years of quarterback play at Kentucky with the amazing year amazing first year from Will Levis, and then I guess what some might call a little underwhelming second year from Levis, and then just the absolute not expected kind of crappy year from Leary last year. What do you expect from Vandegrift this year, and what expectations should other Kentucky fans hold for him?
Well, I know just talking around like BBN as a whole, they are really wanting to see us be a very pass heavy offense this year. And I just don't necessarily seeing that being the case. I very could be because we don't have as good a running game as we have had. We've been blessed with Chris Rodriguez, with Benny Snell, and then Ray Davis last year. I think we do take a step back running the ball wise, but also I don't think that it's going to be a pass first offense like we've seen in the past. Yeah, we have great receivers, but Bush Handum said himself, he wants to try to run the ball 20 to 25 times a night. Like that is his goal, is to run it that much. I'm expecting Vandegrift to have a good year. I don't know if I'd say great. I think he is definitely going to get the job done. I hope he's great. I hope he's a Heisman candidate. But my realistic prediction is he gets the job done. He has some shortcomings. He struggles in big time games against some big time opponents. But I think whenever we need him to like make the basic throw or hit the man deep, because Barian Brown will be open deep because he's so fast. Devin Leary could not make that throw last year. For whatever reason, Leary was struggling to make that throw. It wasn't like it was just like Leary was throwing into triple coverage. It was literally just like he was over undershooting these guys that are open. I don't think we have that same problem with Vandegrift. I think all of the shortcomings that Leary did have last year is Vandegrift will kind of be there to not have those same shortcomings this year. And also, I think that so you look at kind of just the history, like you have the great year from Levis, and then you have back-to-back years struggling. I think that does come with the offensive coordinator, right? Levis's first year, you have Liam Cohen there, who is a offensive genius at our OC. Just completely revamps our offense and makes it so fun, so electric. He then leaves to go to the NFL. Leary struggles. And last year, I have a feeling Cohen did not want to be there last year. The fact that he took another job to go right back to the NFL, I think that he wanted to make it in the NFL so bad. As much as he might have enjoyed being at Kentucky or loved the university or whatever, I think that Cohen just really did not want to be there. His dreams is the NFL. Does that mean he kind of takes his foot off the gas a little bit when it comes to Kentucky last year? I don't know, but whatever the offense was last year that wasn't Ray Davis, struggled 100%. And you could completely blame all of it on Leary, but I think a little bit has to be responsible for Cohen. And now we have Bush Hampton, who, like I said, he already said he wants to run the ball a lot, but I think that he is definitely going to work with Vandegrift, with our receivers, with our running backs, all together to make a solid, can be at times lethal passing offense.
All right, well, I guess we'll go ahead and jump into the schedule prediction. You kind of hit every single little note I had there. I listen, as a Louisville fan, I'm not going to say like I want you guys to win or anything like that, but I am excited to see some of the pieces you guys have. Obviously, you and me have talked in the past, and again, I'm a Louisville fan. I'm Louisville to the day I die, but I'm also a football fan, so I can respect some good football, regardless of who it is. Again, I don't want Kentucky to win. It would suck if they won a national championship and we went fucking 4-8. You know what I mean? Right. But regardless, I love football. So I am excited to watch guys like Barian Brown. I am excited to see how Vandegrift does, whether it's good or bad. But the schedule, Parker. Last bit of stuff we've got here for this episode. You guys got a gauntlet. The good old SEC gauntlet. I feel like every single team not named Missouri or Texas A&M has to go through this. How do you think you guys will do? What do you guys think your ceiling is? What do you think the floor is, and what do you think you guys will actually do if you had to give me a prediction today?
Straight up, I think the ceiling is 10-2. That is very bold, but I really do think the ceiling is 10-2. Now, what I think is realistic is 8-4, maybe 7-5. But I think realistically 8-4. The floor is like 4-8 with this schedule. And I don't want to spend I'm not going to spend too much time on the schedule because I could go into like an absolute like conspiracy theory type of thing how they put together this schedule. Because all in all, the schedule actually if you like do a deep dive into like when these games are being played, the schedule actually kind of like shapes up very nicely to Kentucky. Right? Like we play Georgia, which very realistically we're going to get our asses whooped. Where normally that would be kind of like a season defining loss. We play Ohio the very next week. We don't jump into another like very tough game. Same thing when we play Ole Miss. If we go to Ole Miss and get our asses kicked in Ole Miss, we followed up with Vanderbilt. It's not like we're gonna sit there and I don't think that we go through these like last year where we lost like what 4 or 5 in a row or something like that. I don't know exactly remember what it was, but we went on this like mini losing streak or lost so many out of so many. We're not going to see that this year because the way the schedule is kind of put together, it kind of benefits Kentucky more than people want to say. Also, I think that we got a lot of trap games on our schedule where we potentially could pull up some upsets, and that's why I'm saying 8-4. I do think that we beat. And now this is going in. I think that we either beat Tennessee or I'm sorry, Tennessee or Texas. And I know that's crazy to say Texas. I'm not as high on Texas as a lot of people are. I'm really not. I just for whatever reason I'm not necessarily buying into everything that they're saying they are this year. I think we beat Tennessee or Texas. Tennessee we haven't been able to beat in so many every years, but we've come this close from them to beating them, especially the past couple years. Besides the 44-6 game, which I don't want to talk about, but we've came oh so close to beating Tennessee, and we just can't necessarily get the job done. I think we very well could beat them, even if Nico does have a great season. I think we could upset Tennessee. That's another game, Josh, that we are potentially talking about going to in Knoxville. So I think Tennessee could very well be beat. I think Texas can be beat as well, especially because Texas, hopefully, you can say the same thing about Kentucky, but hopefully Texas is strictly looking to the next week with their matchup with Texas A&M, which is a reignited rivalry from years ago. Maybe that's a trap game that Kentucky could take advantage of. So you got Georgia, I think could be it very easily be a loss. Ole Miss is a loss. Let's just say Texas, and then like always, the Kentucky special. We're gonna drop a game that we probably should have won, and I'm actually gonna say it's gonna be Florida this year, especially after beating Florida 4 out of the last 5 years at Florida. I think their schedule is gonna absolutely their season with the season that they have is going to. This Kentucky game is going to mean a lot for Florida. I think it's going to be rowdy there in the swamp. I think we lose that game to Florida. I do think we beat Louisville. And the reason I say that is because unlike which I think Louisville fans really showed out last year at LNN, there was not as many Kentucky fans as I was expecting. Kentucky fans do kind of travel better to Louisville because there's more Kentucky fans in Louisville than Louisville fans in Lexington. I think we're going to see a very big majority of Kentucky fans being at that Louisville Kentucky game. But I think Louisville will definitely be there. But I think that in Lexington, I think Kentucky takes another game from Louisville. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. But I'm thinking 8-4 right now is realistic. Ceiling 10-2, floor is 4-8.
All right, well, I guess from some of just my quick input, I like what you said about the Florida game, potentially being able to drop that one. I do think Florida is going to have some desperation to them this year, especially with Billy Napier already being on the hot seat. I think there's a very good chance they could come into that game like, all right, look, we really need to win this game because if we don't, there's a very good chance we don't win more than 3 games this year.
Mm-hmm.
So
And at that point, DJ Lagway could be the starter in Florida by that point, if for all we know. They could have already sat Mertz by then. I don't know. I don't think they will, but very easily could Lagway be the starter.
yeah, and I mean Lagway looks pretty good, so for all we know, he could be the truth for Florida. They could
Exactly.
be way better than we think we're giving them credit for. But yeah, they've got themselves a schedule. But yeah, the Swamp is always a hard place to play, and especially after the past few years, I think Florida fans, there's a good chance they might pack that one for that game because I think they kind of want their get back after the past few years. But yeah, I agree with what you said about your schedule. It lays out like very well. You have obviously there's that South Carolina game week 2, which is you and me have talked about it a little bit, but I think that having that game week 2 means a lot more than what I think a lot of people might think it means.
Oh, dude, I think that
Because
South Carolina.
you've already said to me before that you think that game determines whether or not you guys are bowl eligible or not.
Yeah, very easily
Um,
could. I think that South Carolina game is the biggest. Obviously, like you could say Georgia or Texas or even Tennessee is the biggest game of the season. I think the biggest game of that season is going to be that South Carolina game
yeah,
overall.
but good news, it's at Kroger, and
Hmm.
I think you guys are looking for revenge in that one. You dropped it
Hmm.
last year when you really shouldn't have. Uh,
That game
the
was horrible.
the refing was a little like in the game last year, and also just the performance by Kentucky was kind of just not great last year in that one. But it is what it is. But I think you guys are looking for revenge. But I will say, I gotta be honest with you. I think South Carolina is also a little better than I think people give them credit for this year.
I just
But
I think
I'll get more in depth on that in the SEC preview.
yeah, right,
Um,
right.
but I'll just say that Lenora Sellers and Nick Harbor look like the next greatest duo known to
Hmm.
mankind.
That
So
is true.
I would just tell people to keep their eye out on those two. But regardless of that, I really like what you said about the schedule and everything like that. I'm very excited to watch Kentucky and Louisville this year. I'm very excited for the rivalry game for sure. You and me are definitely going to be there. Hey, it's exciting, Parker. Football is only 1 week away. We got week 0 next weekend. So I'm very excited.
And yeah, I think that we definitely I'm sure both of us, you on the Louisville side, me on the Kentucky side, definitely forgot some things to talk about, some crucial bullet points. Like I said, I wanted to do a whole rant on Mark Stoops, and I think I kind of rambled on just a little too much. Just like taking one topic and then branching it off to another topic there. So I definitely am positive that I missed some things or misspoken about some things. But I'm sure next week and the following week, once the season starts, we'll kind of get some things kind of cleaned up, sharpened up because I don't plan on going anywhere. I think that our schedule moving forward is going to be posting on Tuesdays. Every Tuesday, you could be seeing a new Take His Whistle podcast. NFL, Josh, we are going to talk. We and Josh will talk about kind of what we're going to do with the NFL here soon. And then obviously, college basketball is right around the corner as well. But I'm glad to be back, Josh. I'm sure you are too.
Feels great. It feels great to be back. And, as always, we appreciate you guys for listening. Yeah, it feels good. It feels good to be back.
Yes, that is right. All right, everybody. That is going to do it for Take His Whistle. Again, my name is Parker. That's Josh. If you enjoyed, we'll be back here next Tuesday. See you guys later.
See you guys.